right. Good evening, and welcome to the regular meeting of the New Canaan Board of Education on Monday, October 6, 2025. If we could start by standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I didn't hear you, Julie. Thank you. Moving on, I'd like to review and approve the agenda. I'd like to approve the agenda for October 6th. Can I get a motion, please?
Actually, that's where we need a motion to add.
Do I do it afterwards? No, okay.
Yep, if we get a motion. So, if you don't mind.
No.
We have two donations that came later in the day. So wanted to add them on tonight. One is for the East School PTC, and one is from a community member in the district. So just, you see two agendas. One is the one that's posted, one is revised with those two additions. Just need a motion to
Approve the revised
add
agenda.
those two things.
Can I get a motion to approve the revised agenda? Penny, second Matt, all in favor? Great, thank you.
Thank you.
And then if I can get a motion to approve the minutes for September 15th, 2025. Matt, second. Phil, all in favor? Excellent, thank you. And then comments from the public. To ensure the public's right to be heard, board set aside time during the meeting for public comments. 2 minutes will be allotted to each speaker and a maximum of 15 to each subject. Anybody like to approach the board? Seeing there are none, thank you. We'll move on to reports and recognition. Let's do it.
So tonight is our first of two assessment reports and data presentations. We'll start this year with our New Canaan High School report, and Bill Egan, our principal, is here along with his team, and I'm sure he'll introduce. And Bill, take it away.
Well, thank you. First of all, it's a privilege and honor to be here. You know, outside of my family, it's probably one of the joys of my life is to be a high school principal, first in my previous district and now here. So I just want to thank all of you for that. Let me start with some introductions. First, we have our assistant principals and director of special education here at the high school. We have Mr. Kevin Ryan, who's here as director of special education, Mr. Rothman, Mr. Sullivan, and Mrs. Carrero, our assistant principals at the high school. And I'll introduce some people who aren't here as well, but I'll try and stick with the high school. We have Mr. Egan, the athletic director. He is not here tonight, but Mr. Furacucci is here, our K-12 social studies person. We also have Dr. Holly, World Languages. She's here as well. Mr. Leduc, Science, 9 through 12. Mr. Meltzer's not here. Michelle Lula is here, ICT, 9 through 12. And a special thank you to Michelle. Many of the, well, actually the whole graphics from this presentation are a testament to her. So thank you once again, Michelle, for that. Melinda Meyer, our Director of Innovation, is here. Laura Newell cannot be here tonight. Chris Parsons is our special ed department chair. He is here. Our math department chair, Becky Pave, is here. Evan Remley, our English department chair, is here. Cindy Rivera, our director of guidance, is here. We also have Matt Salvestrini could not be here tonight to the digital learning K through 12. And Jim Zambrano is here, our CTE director. Did I get everybody? I think I did. Okay, good. Well, first of all, let's get started. First of all, I apologize if you felt like there was 155 pages were too long, but many of the slides are going together, and I promise you it will not feel as long as it seems. But it's always important to start with our. I hope not. It's always important to start with our philosophy on assessment, and while I will not read all of this, the purpose of assessment is to support and enhance student learning, and we should always look at multiple measures as you take a look at any assessment. Additionally, in the past, I've always talked a little bit about a vision we've kind of created when I first came to New Canaan High School, and we shifted a little bit this year to really make our portrait of the graduate to be the center of everything that we do. And I'll just kind of share this with you. First of all, New Canaan High School strives to be a school community where parents are eager to send their children, and students are excited to learn, grow, and contribute meaningfully as part of the New Canaan High School community. Within this environment, students are supported to become effective communicators, thoughtful collaborators, and critical thinkers who engage deeply in their learning. They grow into adaptable problem solvers and resilient individuals who thrive in the face of challenges. Truly, our kids are a testament to, I think, everything the state wants students to be, and I'm really proud of our kids at all times. But I was also thinking about how can we put that vision or portrait into life? And I did share with you guys a couple of weeks ago, but I think it's important for the greater community to hear it, and it's only 2 minutes long, so hopefully everybody can take a listen to when we had an open house. Parents were invited down to our Library Media Center. Emily Hermberg is one of our tech integrators, and she decided to ask parents a few questions at open house. So these were some of their responses. Do you want to play?
Are we recording right now?
I mean, listen, I went to a very different school. This is like a very open learning environment, so that's what I say.
Lean in, get your mouth as close to the mic as you can.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
And it's already.
Okay.
If I had to describe New Canaan High School in one word, it'll be exceptional,
Awesome.
Thriving.
innovative.
Community.
The thing that makes New Canaan High School awesome is the teachers.
The students and the wonderful teachers.
The teachers, the clubs, and all of the amazing activities that are here.
There seems to be something for everyone, whether their interest is sports or art or music or math or whatever it is, there's something for everyone.
How open it is to innovation and how free the students are, and the tremendous amount of opportunity for all sorts of learning.
The thing that makes New Canaan High School awesome is just the great community of people here.
Families are incredibly involved. Teachers and faculty and administration are here for all of you students.
The thing that makes NCHS awesome is its positive energy.
Everyone that's here, that works here, seems to be really happy to be here. I think that's a great, great thing that you always look at wherever you go. Are people happy or are they miserable? Everyone here is happy.
One moment at New Canaan High School that made me smile was watching my 3 sons graduate.
When I walked into the dome, that made me smile because we didn't have anything like that in high school.
One moment tonight at New Canaan High School that made me smile was visiting Mr. Kibbe's business class.
One moment at New Canaan High School that made me smile was tonight when my daughter introduced to her teacher and said how much she enjoyed being in his class.
The best part of being a New Canaan High School parent is the wonderful supportive environment and seeing your child thrive.
Knowing that my daughter is well taken care of while at school. Her teachers seem phenomenal. That sounds like the agenda that she's working on every day is challenging, and knowing that she will learn so much while being here.
You feel even when you have a freshman who's starting and everything is new to you, that you really have the people to reach out to. So that really makes you feel included and that you know what's happening with your child.
The best part of being an NCHS parent are the fun conversations with my son that are sparked by the really interesting things he's learning about in school.
The best part of being an NCHS parent is knowing you are getting a world-class education.
I promise all of those were unscripted, but it's a true testament to the relationship that we have, you know, with the community and the partnership we have with families. So, if I can do this one, hit the next slide. Thank you. All right, the 24-25 school year was an excellent year for New Canaan High School. We were blessed with the wonderful staff, supportive community, and truly the best kids in the state of Connecticut. They work hard, they're talented, and are kind, considerate people. We're lucky to work with them. We continue to grow, and we'll push to get even better, and we always look out for the well-being of our students and staff. But now if we can get on to the data everybody was here to see, we'll kind of go through it. First, we'll start with the SAT. There are 2 sections, math and evidence-based reading and writing. Each section scored from 200 to 800. Students in grade 11 must take the Connecticut SAT, and it's aligned to the Connecticut core standards, which are embedded into the curriculum. How did we do? We did very well. We ended up second overall in the DERG, New Canaan with 612 for ELA, and 603, which is tied for the top in the DERG and top in the state for math, and New Canaan was second in the state as well. Significantly above the state average as well. State average is 497 and 472 for math. So there's a difference, obviously, in math to ELA across the state. Over time, how have we done? You'll see that we have improved the last couple of years and continue to grow. Made significant strides last year in both ELA and math, and over 600 in both areas now. Ms. Campbell, hopefully you don't mind I put your face on the presentation, but that's because I really wanted to thank you. Last year you pointed out the ACT and wanted to know some questions around concordance scales and all that.
Was Michelle responsible for that graphic as well, or?
Depends if you're happy about it.
Okay.
If you're happy about it, then I am. If not, no, I'm only kidding.
Shot fired, Bill, shot fired. Understood.
So ultimately, you pointed out some questions last year, and I think my answers were simplistic in nature in the sense that I said we do very well, and I didn't really get deep enough into that. So hopefully this year I can dive a little deeper and give you and all of you some of the information that you're looking for. So basically on the ACT, we had 58 kids take the ACT, 138 total tests, about 2.4 is an average for all of them. So that was interesting, and to be honest with you, I didn't put these scores in here. Overall, if we were to use concordance scales, over 1,300 for our entire set of kids, that would be the average for them. About 80% of them, the top would be 4,800. But there were 11 kids I was most interested in, and maybe this is what you were getting at a little bit last year. But that's the question I'd be asking anyway. Why these 11 kids? These 11 kids did not take the SAT at all. They did not take the school day SAT. They did not take any SAT. They only took the ACT. And the question is, how did they do? Well, they would have, if we took these 11 kids, scored over 1,500 on the ACT. You can ignore the numbers in the background. They don't really mean anything. 1,500 is all that matters on this. I had other slides that started changing things around. I said too much. But basically, these 11 kids would have scored over 1,500 on the ACT. And what does that mean really for us if you start taking a look at that? Well, if you use the concordance scale and you say, well, how can I put this into our other numbers? This next slide. So if we had the school day SAT, we scored 612 and 603, which is great. We had 1215 total for that. Now, if you average in those 11 kids who scored above 1,500, we would have been at 616 and 608. Now, again, I know you could take a look at Darien and other places. I think Darien was the only one ahead of us in ELA, but that would have put us above Darien's number. But that made me think a little more and say, well, these kids took a lot of SATs. Could we take a look at the SAT and take a look at how they did in other tests as well? Because that one school day SAT, some of these kids had already taken it and done really, really well on the SAT. Maybe they came in, maybe they didn't take their best effort. We don't know. But what we do know is we super scored every kid's SAT in the building. And this only goes to August, by the way. They're actually better since then. So some of the other kids that just took, I just looked at the numbers for September, and there were 50 kids. They scored pretty much well above 1,300 on those 50 kids, so that would have popped us up a little bit. But anyway, as of August, we were 626 for ELA, and that math number jumped all the way up to 622. Now, if you take the ACT, those 11 kids again, and pump them back into the numbers, we're at 630 and 627. Like I said, we had a recent SAT as well that the kids did really well on. So before this end of the night, we'll be about 800 for each one. So anyway, let's go back to our numbers that historically that we've taken a look at. But hopefully, I think that was kind of numbers you wanted to dive into for the ACT. Hopefully that answered that. And feel free throughout this to ask any questions that you guys want.
Thank you.
So if we look historically at the SAT, how we've done, again, we're back up there with our numbers at 612 and 603. I'll come back to the female and male numbers in a minute, but you'll notice that there's more of a balance this year. As I said previously, we talked a couple years ago, usually 3 years is a trend. So if we go back 2 years, the males did better in both math and English. So that was kind of weird for us. Then last year we took a look at it again. The males did better in math and English. This year we're back in what's traditionally considered to be what we normally are, where there's really no statistical difference between the males and the females. So I was kind of, again, happy to see that. If I take a look at college statistics now and shift a little bit, I'll call up Cindy in a second to talk about some of the ways we continue to look to improve. 97% of our students from last year are attending a four-year college. That's awesome. And if I take a look at where they applied, these were the top applications of the most applied schools at New Canaan High School in 2025. Now, you're probably asking yourself, how has that changed over time? At least that's what I'd be asking myself. So if I go back 10 years and take a look at where they applied 10 years ago, you'll see a little bit of a difference. It's shifting from small liberal arts schools to the bigger schools on average. And you also see the numbers of applications rise dramatically. In part, the Common App is a big part in that. And you can see the little symbols of there were 7 big schools back then, 11 now, but the numbers are just significantly higher. Where did they go? Shifted a little bit. Last year, UConn was number 1, UConn Stores. This year, Indiana turned out to be the top school that students went to. But there's a wide variety of really amazing schools on that list, and good to see. How many kids are applying? This is up a little bit, actually. So there are 3,235 transcripts to 353 colleges for 314 students. So I think last year was 9 point something, this year it's about 10 per kid on average. 10 students are attending international schools. We have 2 students attending 2-year colleges. We have 1 student taking a gap year. 100% of our students have a plan following graduation. And this is an interesting number. We talked a lot last year about some colleges going back to requiring tests, and some did. I know that some whole states did. Georgia did, Florida did, and some of our, I don't know, for lack of a better word, highest achieving universities in the country, some of them did. But 44% of our students still did not submit SAT and ACT scores. Now, that may change. It may continue to kind of drop back a little bit, but if you look over 4 years, before this, it really wasn't really worth looking at the numbers because it would have been, I don't know, less than 10%, less than 5% probably who didn't submit scores. That changed really in the class of 2022 was test optional, and it rose a little bit, 43% in 23, 47% in 24, and it did come back, 44%, but still a significant number did not submit scores. Now, I know you guys always love to ask amazing, in-depth college questions, so I'm going to have Cindy Rivera come on up and talk a little bit about our next steps for our guidance department, and then I will help her take the wonderful questions that you always love to ask about college. Cindy.
Thank you.
Where am I off camera?
Okay, so thank you, Bill, with the stats. We're always interested in them as a department, and our department has grown into a really talented group of counselors who are helping with how we are shaping what we do and how we do it, and really be one of our biggest goals was enhancing communication with the community. What are we doing that will help everyone to understand what we're seeing as we're seeing it? And so one of the biggest things that happened this year was in the last year we started an Instagram account, and we're really proud that we have 575 followers now. But the big thing is that we average 22,000 views a month. So the communication is getting out there, and that communication is. A lot of times colleges are following us because we follow colleges, and we're increasing our presence with that Instagram account, and this is the trend for kids with how they're following things. So it's keeping students and families more informed about our events, about collaboration we're having with faculty, about the programs we're offering, and also mental health issues that are coming up. We share about 100 posts and stories each month. We highlight academic guidance, college and career prep, social emotional support, and resources for students and families. Oh, I have to remember to do this next one. Oh, thank you. We're continuing to expand our travel to targeted colleges and conferences. Last year, we had to cancel some of those due to the events early in the year, and so we're really focusing more on that again this year as we are getting out there. We invite the college representatives to discuss last year's admissions trends with us and surprises. We review all this in blind admissions, and in the spring, once all the results come in, we review all the results, the acceptances, the denies, the wait lists, and decide where the surprises are there, what doesn't make sense to us, or what was, like last year, Colorado was suddenly like huge, like everybody was applying there. I was like, why is everyone applying? And suddenly it took a 90 average to get in. And we're like, how did that happen? So we're questioning those things as to what's going on in each of those results. And we make that list as to who we're going to travel to see, or who, when they come to visit us, we're going to make a concerted effort to really check in with them, understand what they're doing, what's happening in their schools that are changing the statistics for us. We're finding students are not visiting colleges before applying as much. They're really thinking, well, when I get in, I'll go see those schools. And that's not a good practice. If you can visit, we really do encourage kids to visit because it's good for them to understand where they fit in, but it's good for the colleges to understand how interested that you are as a student, and that you're really understanding who they are. And that's changed in admissions, that colleges want to know that you actually did some research. You're not just throwing out a bunch of schools to apply to. The recent score trends of whether you send or not send is all over the place right now. So some colleges don't differentiate between where you're coming from as a school and whether you send scores or not. Other colleges say we're score optional to allow those kids who don't have the supports we have here to have a chance at getting into the college. But that isn't necessarily meant for New Canaan kids who have resources. So we have to always kind of dive a little deeper when they say score optional. And certainly certain majors certainly may require, like a physics major or something, may require certain scores versus, or an engineering major versus another major. We're looking at AI and social media in college admissions. We're finding students use social media a lot. They have their influencers who go to certain schools, and they may decide that that's the school they want to see based on what they're seeing on social media. So we're educating the kids on how to do research in different ways around that. Colleges are not using AI as much in admissions just yet, but it's getting there. So. A big one for us in the last year, in coordination with the math department and admissions, we're talking about calculus as that bellwether as to whether you're getting in or not based on what your math level is. We're finding that some colleges have made comments that they don't like to see kids taking calculus too early in high school, because we're seeing a rush of kids like, I have to double a math in 8th grade, so I'm in pre-calculus in 9th grade, so I'm in calculus as a sophomore. And colleges say, well, that's a real red flag because you're not on the calculus track. You'll forget all of that by the time you come to us. So we're seeing that kind of conversations and working towards that. In November, after this first round, early round, I would say the majority of kids are applying early these days to at least one school. So we're taking that early round of admissions to look at the kids' overall list of schools to make sure they have a balanced list. And that's based on last year. So if kids think Colorado was their backup school, it may not be anymore. So we'll continue to offer that information and advice to the kids. We expanded Naviance last year to increase its ability to track kids in terms of their graduation requirements, and so kids can track their own four-year plans as we create four-year plans for them early. And it gets entered into Naviance, and we can check, help them with that. Have invited Jeff Zelingo, the author of a lot of college admissions books and papers and articles and podcasts and about defining what's best for kids in terms of college. And his latest book is Dream School. And that's really talking to kids and families about what does it mean to get into your dream school and how do you choose your dream school based on other criteria besides just the rankings. So he's coming December 4th, I believe, December 4th. And Dr. Lutzy is going to be moderating that. It'll be in the auditorium. We're inviting the whole community because we think this will be, and it's been supported by the whole community in paying for him to come here. So we're really happy that he'll be here, and we'll be starting to advertise that very soon. The counselors are going through DBT training this year to help support students in managing their stress and anxiety. It's been a problem for a number of years, and so this training will really help us in using some real scientific strategies that have really been proven to help kids with this. And then finally, we're increasing a lot of our program for all students. We have the building block, which is an advisory period that we go into quite often to talk to our own students about what's important in their grade level. So like this month, we've had 3 sessions with seniors to really help them with every step of the way for applying to colleges. Where are you now? What more do you need help with? And this Wednesday will be the last one where we work with them. The University of California system, last year and this year will have a workshop on helping kids navigate that application system. The UK schools, we usually have a workshop in the spring to talk about what to think about when applying to the UK schools. We have them come over here and talk to our kids. It's been very successful. With the English department, they developed, are you bragging about this already, Mike? Evan, about the essay workshop? Brag away. Yeah, you should. They created their own essay workshop and supplemental workshop to give to kids rather than pay the college essay guide to do it. And it was held in person rather than online, and it was so well attended. The kids got a lot of good information out of that. And then we've moved the junior parent meeting. It's always been in January. We meet with junior parents to talk about next steps for them. We've moved that back to November because they were feeling too rushed to really get started for February vacation and get going with that. And finally, we always do our financial aid night, which is this week too, so that will all be there. Okay, that's my things.
For Cindy? Did I hear that counselors have also begun using the Dome?
Yes, we do. We put some college searches up there, or we have the kids, it's a program that they can point to anywhere in the country, and we can look at a college and it'll show a little video of it, and we've used it a little bit now, so it's fun.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. So just a couple questions. So going back to the SAT optional, I see obviously the number of students has gone back to 2023 levels, but it seems like that's a signal as to colleges if you don't submit, right? It's a signal that you didn't do as well as expected, or as at least not above what their stated average is.
Sure.
And it seems like that in and of itself is skewing the data of these averages, and so you get sort of negative feedback loops, so now the averages increase, so the less students submit because the average is higher, and so forth. So how do we, I guess, of the students that didn't submit, was their acceptance rate below? How do we gauge that? Like, was their acceptance rate below those that did submit SATs? So would we advise against not submitting them? And then also, I guess, how do we sort of guide students through the decision to submit or not submit, or even sort of to take the SAT? I mean,
Well, we have been more and more encouraging them to prepare for the SAT. Don't just say, I'm a bad test taker, so I'm not going to prepare for it. We suggest that they do something, and they do their best in preparing at least for one test and see where they are. And if they feel well enough that they think they can do more, we've just taken the pressure off of that, you know? So the most kids who are applying to the most competitive schools, we're pushing them that they really should, they will need SAT scores, and that it probably will hurt them not to send SAT scores. Now, right now, there's only 2 Ivies that still are score optional. All the rest have gone back. And many of the highest achieving schools have gone back to tests required. So we're seeing that. So that's where we're advising kids. So the kids who don't have scores, we say, of course you apply, but know that this may actually impact you.
We don't, okay, so we advise that. We don't actually have the data, but it seems like everything's going that way.
Yeah, we're going to be tracking that because it's only in the last year that we're seeing this switch back to more kids taking the SAT, and that's what we're saying. We've really got to track what colleges mean about taking or not taking, and what does that mean? They're very reluctant to give us any data as to.
Well, that was part of my next question, is also, I guess, what sort of visibility do we have as to when colleges are going to go from test optional to required? I mean, do they give you a year? Is it the same year? Is it 2 years in advance? I mean, how much visibility do we have to guide students to prepare for that?
They usually announce perhaps in January or so of this year for next year that they're going to change. So all of that knowledge came out last year, early in the winter, that we were starting to see colleges change where they were going with things.
So not much time, because I believe most students prepare well in advance, right? A couple of years?
Junior year, yeah, generally in junior year.
Okay.
So.
And then, did you have an SAT question, or?
No, I had another question.
Okay, and then just, no, there was, just in college counseling in general, one of the things that I've heard a lot from parents is that, you know, they come to these great schools in New Canaan, and I think that there's a mismatch, and I think that expectations aren't appropriately managed, and then they get to the counseling appointment, I think spring of the junior year with their student, and the colleges that we sort of suggest or target are very different from the ones they had imagined, right? And sort of there's certainly a mismatch.
Yeah, they say where dreams go to die. So
exactly, yes, where the dreams go to die,
yes,
exactly. And
I've
so,
heard that.
and I think that it's very well stated, with obviously with a lot of experience. But so I guess maybe this sort of ties in somewhat to thinking about managing stress and anxiety, and the amount of anxiety and stress that goes in, it's created and angst among some of the underclassmen even.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's just the lack of knowledge and understanding of what the bar is and what do I need. And so I feel like a lot of these, from what I'm hearing from parents, a lot of underclassmen come in, they don't really know where the bar is. Yeah. And so what that does, it just creates more anxiety because they don't even know what they're shooting for. They just know they're not good enough, right? Which is not the message that we want to reinforce, right? And so is there and I know there's capacity constraints with meeting with all the students, right, with the number of counselors that you have, but I can't help but to think that sort of intervening or meeting with these students and the parents earlier on, maybe as freshmen, it allows them to, it allows us to manage expectations, right, and somewhat manage or control the anxiety. I guess with some students it may increase their anxiety, but also it allows them to sort of take more control and ownership of their career path and their education and their academic path, right? Knowing what they need to achieve and sort of create steps, whether it's in their schedule or sort of in understanding what grades they need to achieve in order to be competitive in what their dream school is, or at least manage expectations such that they know, you know what, I'm trending, my trajectory is not towards Ivy, it's towards something else, right?
And this is what we're trying to change, is not getting to the Ivy is the only way to get to your dream school. And we start in sophomore year with our kids in terms of talking about what kinds of schools you like without putting names to them. What are you looking for in an atmosphere and environment, and what subjects are you really interested in? Let's research those subjects. What careers are you interested in? We do an exercise, we're actually going to do it the seniors this week. They don't even know yet, so I'll tell you. Of just, you think so much about what you want in a college. You know, you want I don't know, the big sports, rah-rah, all those pictures on social media, that's what you want. But let's roll that back and say, what do you want out of college? What do you want after your 4 years? And to switch the conversation a little bit, is where's that name going to get you? What else is going to get you to where you want to go? And so we really have to broaden the range of colleges kids are looking at. You could see with those stats, we've narrowed to these same 20 or 30 schools that 50, 80, 100 kids are applying to. Those earlier stats from 2015, those stats, it was the same amount of kids in a class, but there were 30 applications to each of those schools. So this is a trend that's been happening, and we're trying to broaden that stake and provide programming from sophomore year on to really consider what else do you want and how to look at these stats and understand. Don't be disappointed. It's just we're changing the direction of where you're going with these things. Because for most of those kids going to those most top schools, by freshman or sophomore year who those kids are going to be. And so that's what we're always doing to navigate the majority of the class as to where they're thinking. And that goes along with the activities they're looking at. We have a career interest inventory when it comes out. What does that mean for high school? What courses should you take if the career interest says you like finance? What do we have in high school that can direct them towards those careers? And we're having kids look at that. What do you do in your life now that will direct you towards those interests and be interesting to colleges to build that profile? So we're getting them to talk about not just taking all the top courses, 9 APs every year. That's not interesting. What are you doing outside of that to make, to think about who you are as a person?
Great. So what about, I guess, almost like a, in college you sit down and you sit with an academic advisor and they sort of help you create a path, right?
Yep.
Do we have that for freshmen? I think sophomores is a little bit late even, right? And so given
Sometimes they're not developmentally ready. They're still babies.
Completely understand, but it's still, but the transcript is a transcript, right? And so you kind of have to grow up sometimes, or at least understand that you may be 14, but this is going to affect your college career, right? And so even that conversation,
Yep.
I think is very important because they are so young, and including the parents in that conversation. And it may help to create a little more dispersion in the schools as well, and saying, listen, if you want to hit this tier of school, this is going to be what's required. You're probably not on that trajectory given what we see in the classes you're in right now as a freshman. But here are other schools you should try to reach for, and they're broader than the schools that you heard that your friends applied to. So we don't have that clustering effect that you mentioned, because there are a lot of great schools out there that maybe are in the second and the third tier that would be more appropriate for some of our students that they just don't know about, or they don't understand, or it's. I just want to make sure that we give them enough time.
Yeah.
To your point that they're still young as freshmen to course correct, such that spring of their junior year, they're not like, oh man, I've got to go to.
We never allow that to happen. Yeah. We start in freshman year in November. We meet with each of our freshmen one-on-one, and we build a 4-year plan academically for them, based on what they like so far, what goals they're thinking of for themselves, what activities they're in, what's their dad do, just do you have any interest and what are you thinking about? And we start and we review that every year. And, it's really interesting conversations with freshmen who say, yeah, I could do better, but I don't like to do homework. And I said, oh, so where do you think you want to go to school? Oh, UT Austin. I said, well, you need a 98 average to get in there these days. And they're like, what? So we do wake them up, and we do, try to get them thinking about those things without putting pressure on them. It's all okay. We will find a place for you, but if this is your goal and this is what you want, we do have to think about that. We want to get you to honors and AP classes by junior and senior year. So this is where we're going. So it is always part of the conversation.
Great. And the parents included in that as well, as far as
we send that home.
A list of does that include a list of potential schools or anything like that, or
no? We really don't want kids thinking about that. I mean, I know they always are, but we don't want them to feel like every time they come to see their counselor, we're talking about college with them. So not at that time.
Perfect. Thank you.
So I was wondering how we were doing with colleges coming to New Canaan High School, because I think I remember a couple of years ago you were saying that trend was a little bit down.
I
I don't know if it was COVID or
Yeah, I was going to say
reversed.
that was more COVID-related. We had reduced the number of schools coming, but no, about 150 generally each year is what we can manage. We're a little more space limited this year with some of our spaces that we had during, it's just this busy. These next 2 weeks are super busy, our next few weeks. So we've had to, wiggle around to find spaces for our meetings, but we're doing very well, and we're doing as good as ever with that. And kids are attending.
Okay, and I had 2 more questions. One is, I was wondering what you thought was behind the drop in, or the reduced interest in small liberal arts colleges.
Yeah, that's a good question.
And I think I remember like somebody like you telling me that Williams no longer came to New Canaan or in Amherst. I mean, not that those aren't the only,
Yeah, we
only
beg
one,
them
those are
every
just
year.
2.
Yeah, a lot of them have, after COVID, it was hard to get them to still travel. They reduced their own budgets for traveling. And so we weren't seeing them. But in terms of the number of kids, they're really going for the large schools. And I don't know if that's because they don't know what they want to do, or because the large schools usually have the best business schools. Majority of our kids want to look at business majors.
I think big sports has driven
Big
really
sports
a
a
lot,
lot.
and it's actually raised the profile of these kind of big public universities. Now
Yeah.
they're really top academic institutions, and they also have that in the sports. People love it.
Yeah.
Okay. And then last.
And it's cheaper.
If
The big
you're.
public universities.
Okay, well,
Half
that's
the cost.
always big. Okay, so if you're expanding your travel to targeted colleges and conferences, is your budget enough?
Yes.
Or do you need more from the Board of Ed?
It's your chance.
I know. I know, but it is good. We left a lot on the table last year, and I feel badly about that. So we have got to figure out how to spend this year. So
Okay.
we're doing fine.
Great.
with that.
Well, thank you for everything that you're doing for the students. I really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
You guys want anything while I'm up here? So.
Did a good job.
Okay,
Thank you. Oh, it's more? I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
More questions? And there's more after me. Circling back to the chart that had the increase in the number of kids applying to the schools, is there a role that the technology that Naviance is playing? Because I think we had talked in the past that there's like a recommendation function. that can be
overlaps.
Like,
Yeah.
hey, you're at New Canaan, kids like you with this type of profile apply to these schools, and it can
Yeah.
actually end up enhancing and reinforcing what they may be seeing on social media that encourages them towards the same schools. And I'm wondering if that's still something that's happening, or if because it sounds like we're trying to kind of fight that tide. And
Yeah,
so I'm
I
just
don't
wondering-
point it out to kids anymore because it's
Yeah.
not useful to them.
Yeah.
Because they're just, it doesn't make any sense for us to even use it. And we've talked to Naviance about it, but that is the overlaps, they're applying to the same schools.
And Sue
So-
Carroll's always talking about that. If you want a Catholic university and you apply to Providence or Villanova, why not apply to Marquette? So she's kind of always
Yeah.
looking for other options for kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the functionality, it sounds like, is embedded in Naviance and it's there in the system. We do not reinforce it. We're not pointing students towards it, but students,
Yeah, I'll
some
check
are
with-
likely
some of the
finding it.
counselors may still be using it, but we found it not useful any longer.
Okay. I also had a question about the travel and about the colleges that are coming here. Do we see a relationship over time between like the ones that come here and then the number of, I would assume the number of applications would go up if schools are coming here, but also the acceptances? Like, do we see the reciprocal investment there?
I think so. I think what we see is the personal phone calls we can make and are taken from us to really discuss a student and why they were deferred or waitlisted and what more they were looking for. Even from some of the largest schools like Penn State, I can have such a nice personal conversation with that representative to talk about, and I think she's going to come here and talk about some of her programs as well, to really understand how they work differently and what they're looking for, because they're all different. And what they're looking for each year changes consistently.
Okay.
So I think those relationships do help a bit.
And then the Instagram. So I'm wondering, it sounds like there's two audiences. It's like the engagement of students, but there's also that it's a profile that faces colleges, that they can learn about New Canaan as well. I'm just wondering, from the student perspective, is everything available in other, Instagram is not the only way for them to be up to date. Everything that's available on Instagram is available in other
everywhere.
places.
Sure.
And then from the college's perspective, how much of the content is focused on sort of promoting New Canaan High School and everything we have, versus the internal facing information for students?
I think we do both because we advertise, we put up, different colleges and say, have you ever thought about Drexel? This is what's good about Drexel, and show little videos of Drexel or UPenn, or, so you're always seeing some kind of content that is being thrown out there that we're creating, so.
Okay. And then I also had a question about the essay workshop that you mentioned. What is the timing of that, and how does that fit in? Because you mentioned the junior workshop has moved up a little bit because people felt like they needed a little more time. And I'm just wondering how the essay writing fits into the part of the process where they're also looking at schools and also, starting to work on applications and everything.
That's in junior year, the main essay, and it's most of the English classes, junior English classes, do their own essay writing with the kids. But there's also was a workshop to think about how to create your ideas for making the essay. The supplemental essay workshop was in September this year, because that's when kids are finally deciding on the schools and suddenly realizing they have this list of supplemental essays they also need to address. Those don't come out till after August 1st, so they can't really get to that any earlier.
Mm-hmm. And then do you have a sense of what portion of the student body was participating in the essay, the supplemental essay?
You know
I
what
think
it
there was
was?
about 60 kids, so it's not a bad turnout for
Okay.
quite a busy high school population.
Yeah.
Great.
It's all seniors.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Oh,
Just out of curiosity, with the stress with the students, is there particular tasks that create more stress? I mean, I think doing the essays and getting that done and having that done junior year is really terrific, because you're not pounding on them in December of their senior year like I was. But what are the other big stressors, just other than the whole process and feeling about where you're going to go for the students?
I can help with that too. I think it's a multi-layered thing. Like, college admissions has really changed dramatically, where it's, years ago, there were kids taking less and less APs. When we get into the AP data, you're gonna see what's really amazing data, but kids are taking so many classes. There's additional stress that's with that. They're taking college-level courses, quite a number of them, as they're doing their applications, as they're playing sports, and also have an instrument, and also, I mean,
In
they're
leadership
involved in
positions, yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
These kids, there's not a second of their day where they're not working hard and also being amazing people on top of it, So I think life has just changed a lot, really, even over 10 years. We'll go back and look at data from 2010 to what it is today. It's not the same building, because the kids are taking really intense and rigorous courses that also impact everything else they do.
Yeah, and I think that's where the stress, the kids come in and crash because they have so much, and they, I owe this, I need to talk to that person, I need to be there, and it all has to happen now, I'm behind already. I think peers make it worse because they're all in competition with each other, so they tell each other things. I just feel like the network out there sometimes just ramps it up quite a bit, and our role as counselors to say, you're okay, you're doing well, and you'll be okay.
So this is not a question. I just finished reading Dream School in advance of knowing that Jeffrey Slingo is coming in December, and I think it's phenomenal. I think his message is phenomenal. I've read some of the articles out there, and I'm very excited that we're bringing him here. I think it's a great message.
Great. I'm excited too. Thank you, everybody.
And I've seen Brian moderate, and it's really something to see, so. All right, so let's move forward. So college choices for college level courses. So we have advanced placement, ECE, UConn, early college experience, Project Lead the Way, that's the University of New Haven, and Connecticut State Community College. Teachers here are trained to be able to teach all of these courses. So 86% of our students in grade 12 are enrolled in college level courses. That's through all of those. Here are the other college options outside of AP. There's 585 students enrolled in those courses. That's up by 73, which was up by, I think it was like 50 something the year before. So we continue to raise these other college options for kids. The list is there. Now, advanced placement. What is an AP class or test? First of all, they're designed to give an intro to college level class while still in high school. There's a test at the end of the year, score 1 to 5. 3 is the goal that the College Board is shooting for. 29 different AP classes are offered at the high school. They're designed to demonstrate a passion or an interest, and generally the most rigorous courses available that we have here. They're digital mostly, although some are still hybrid. Usually some of the STEM courses are still a little bit hybrid. Our number of AP courses has risen over the years, and when appropriate, we'll continue to look for the right courses for us to enhance what we do here. This next, oops, there's the 29 courses, it's the same kind of thing. This next slide I find to be one of the most interesting ones. So basically, there were 1,417 total tests here at the high school, the number of tests. There were basically 498 kids, individual test takers, and we scored the best we ever have, over 96% of our students. I think it was actually 95.9% of our students got a 3 or better on those tests. Pretty remarkable, really, when you think about that many tests here at the high school and have 96% of them pass a college level course. Absolutely amazing. So, Penny, I was going to put your face on this slide. It didn't seem to go well here, but you asked last year, and you said, hey, what percentage of our kids were getting what grades on these tests? So we did a little deeper dive into that as well. 39% got 4s, 39% roughly, there's a little plus or minus on this. 39% got 5s, 17% got 3s, and 5% got either 1 or 2. That's amazing. If you think about the numbers of kids we have taking AP tests, the number of tests, to do that well is such a testament to our kids, to our teachers, and to our community. It's really something to behold. I think it's amazing. Oops, I want to go back to that one. Now, on these tests, there were, first of all, the senior class size was 321. 232 took 1 or more exams during the course of their high school career. 72.2% of the high school class took and passed an AP exam during the course of their high school experience. That's amazing. Almost 3 out of 4 kids took an AP test, and this is just AP, this is not other college options, took an AP test during the course of their high school career and passed it, got a 3 or better. That's really, I just think that's absolutely remarkable. If you go back to 2010, it was actually less than 44%, I think it was 43 point something. But that's really, really astounding. Now, if you continue to look deeper at our courses, 91.2% of our kids have taken or enrolled right now in an AP or honors level class. That's unbelievable. And that's when we talked about some of the different stressors kids have, right? They're taking these challenging courses. And Mr. Campbell, even to your point about colleges, there's still some of these places that are saying, hey, if you don't meet our average, you better have a really great program. So these kids, it's like, for lack of a better word, and hopefully I don't get in trouble, you're damned if you do or damned if you don't. You better take the most rigorous courses you got, or you better do really, really well on those SATs and ACTs. You know, so it's like you got to prepare for both. And that's such a stressful thing for these kids, and they do such a remarkable job. It's amazing. 91.2% of our kids are taking AP and honor levels classes, and 72.2% of them have taken and passed an AP test. It's such a proud thing for the community. I just think that's amazing. So let's take a deeper look at these AP scores, right? So an AP Scholar, so that's anyone who's taken 3 or more AP exams and gotten a 3 or higher. So we have 67 of those kids. An AP Scholar with honors, that's a minimum of 3.25 average on all exams, 3 or higher on 4 or more exams. Well, we've got 50 of those kids. How about this one? The AP Scholar with distinction. That's a 3.5 average at least on all exams. A 3 or higher on 5 or more exams in your high school career. We have almost 200 kids in last year's senior class who did that. That's unbelievable. Honestly, it's a testament to all the work that you guys put in as a Board of Education, because I just think that's remarkable. Just over time, you see the history of the AP Scholars. We have a tremendous amount of AP Scholars, a high average. We continue to do well. I don't want to spend a ton of time on that slide, but I just wanted to share with you over time what that looks like. I'm sure all of you have taken a gander at this presentation before. We do really, really well, over the past 5 years in each of these subject areas. If we have a dip at all, generally the dips are pertaining to new teacher in a role, just got training. So you might see a dip, and that seems to happen every year. Somebody leaves, somebody comes in, that does happen in one area or so. So you'll see that. I think it was in AP Economics. We had a little bit lesser number of students, and we also had a little bit of a dip, but we'll see that pop up now that they've done that for another year or so. And I don't want to steal any of Mr. Fukuchi's thunder later. But I'll skip through some of these, and you've taken a look at these, I'm sure. There's the courses over time. But where are these courses happening? A lot of them are happening in the social studies. CTE has some. English has a good percentage, and math and science are also a similar range, and world languages has a number of AP courses here too. How do we do? Again, in each of the areas, so you break them down a little bit by area. Again, pretty amazing. 92%, 100%, 94%, 93%, 95%. It just, in every area, they seem to do very, very well. One of the biggest indicators that they look at is say, well, the percentage of students enrolled in grades 10 through 12, like what is that? That's how do you get that number higher by senior year, because we looked at that 72% I talked about earlier. So if you continue to raise this number, meaning that the 10th grade and 11th grade, there's some more in those years, you'll see that pop up. That's kind of what's happened over time. So again, this year we have our highest enrollment in our AP courses that we've had. Percentage-wise, grades 10 through 12. I talked about this a little bit earlier, but if you go back to 2010, that's not that long ago, really. We're in 2025. How did we do? We went from 43.9% of our senior class in 2010, getting a 3 or better on an AP exam, to last year, 72.2%. Now, I said last year, I'm not quite sure how long that can continue to go up. I did not expect that to go up to 72.2% last year, so I'll put that caveat again. I'm not quite sure where there's got to be a spot where that slows down or stops, but again, pretty amazing. And thank you, Michelle, for the spotlight on that. Next generation science standards. Michael, you want to come up and do this whole thing? I could use a break anyway. Michael LeDuc.
All right, thank you for having us. I'm thrilled to be sharing the excellent work that our students have been doing in science and the work that our exceptional science faculty has done with them. So we'll start off by presenting about the next generation science standards. These are the standards that are adopted as Connecticut state standards. The standards themselves have 3 separate components or 3 dimensions separated into really what we think of as the core ideas in science. That's really like thinking about physical science, earth science, life science, those disciplinary core ideas. We also have the science and engineering practices. That's what scientists and what our students are doing. And the cross-cutting concepts are ways of thinking about science that connect across disciplines. Our curriculum, instruction, and assessment are in line with those three dimensions. The NGSS it's evaluated with the summative assessment in 5th, 8th, and 11th grade, and student performance is sorted into 4 categories, 3 being meeting the target, 4 exceeding, and 2 is approaching, 1 not met. Really proud to show that our students continue to perform really well on the NGSS assessment at the top of the state, along with Wilton, and we continue to improve in our performance on this. We've had really strong performance ever since it started to be the state test in 2018. There's been a little bit of variation year to year. Ultimately, we do see an increase in the students who are exceeding level, exceeding expectation, and decreases in the students that are below expectation. So continued strong performance across the board. Next steps for us, the results that we get for the next generation science standards includes areas of relative weakness. It doesn't mean that it's a true weakness, it just means it's below our average. All of our performance is pretty exceptional related to the next generation science standards. And our relative weaknesses are in some ways predictable in that the next generation science standard test is given in 11th grade, and our relative weaknesses tend to be content strands that students are getting in their senior year. So not a function of the quality of what we're doing with our students, but the timing of the assessment. And so we're exploring ways to get some of that content a little earlier into the course sequence for students, but part of the great flexibility that we give students and how they sequence their courses results in some aspects of the curriculum being after they would take the assessment. We're also going to evaluate how and when we administer the next generation science standard summative assessment. We tend to wait to the very end of the testing window where students have had as much content as possible, which is really great for a lot of reasons, but it also puts it at the end of their junior year where students are pretty tired of testing. And so we want to evaluate really when is the best time for us to administer that test and think through what's going to be the overall best outcome for our students. Like all of our departments, we're working really closely with our technology team and our technology integrators to continue to evaluate how we can implement AI to enhance student learning. And we've had a lot of great progress there and continued PL coming up for the rest of the year working with that. We're also exploring some additional potential course offerings. This is the first year that we've been able to offer UConn ECE credit for one of our science courses. AP Physics C is students are able to earn UConn credit this year, and we're going to see if we can expand that into other courses over time. So far, it's gone really well, and we're looking forward to assessing that and seeing how we can expand it over time. We're getting more and more students into the Dome on a regular basis and finding ways to make that an assured experience for students across their science experience. And lastly, our Portrait of a Graduate that we've worked on as a community for years now. Our 5 competencies are getting more and more embedded into the educational experience of our students. We want to continue to provide students opportunities to grow in that regard and also get feedback over time as well. So thank you. Do you have any questions for me?
You could also ask questions about the college stuff too. I was tired, I think. I skipped over that.
Thank you so much.
Anybody want to go back to the college at all? You're saving it for later? All right. So up next is Dr. Holly, who's going to talk to us about the seal of biliteracy.
Good evening. I appreciate the opportunity to share our amazing results for 24-25 for the Connecticut Seal of Biliteracy, as well as our continued work in advancing our world language program at New Canaan High School. Everything I'll share tonight is rooted in our team's commitment, our wonderful team of teachers, to excellence and to the district's vision for every student. That's the Portrait of a Graduate, which calls us to foster communication, empathy, adaptability, curiosity, and critical thinking in all learners, and in our case, in the languages that we offer, as well as the languages that our students speak. So what is the Seal of Biliteracy? The Connecticut Seal of Biliteracy is a formal recognition awarded to graduating seniors who demonstrate proficiency in English and one or more additional languages. So sometimes we could say triliteracy, but that always gets highlighted in red, like that's not a word, but technically. NCHS students can qualify in grades 10, 11, or 12 by reaching at least the intermediate mid level, also known as I3, on one of the one or more nationally recognized assessments that I've listed here. So for Mandarin, French, and Spanish, we have the assessment of performance towards proficiency in languages, which students and teachers fondly called APPLE. In Latin, we have the Latin Interpretive Reading Assessment, or ALIRA. We also have, for other languages, the Oral Proficiency Interview and Writing Proficiency Test. And, of course, we have the AP World Language Exams. So I'd like to stress that these assessments don't just test content. We always tell families and students, they measure the students' real-world ability to communicate, that is to speak, to listen, to read, and write in another language. With regards to the linguistic diversity of the Seal of Biliteracy, and this students and teachers are very, very proud of, the new Seal of Biliteracy guidelines, which I was very happy to be a part of that state of Connecticut cohort of administrators and teachers to revise them, really focus on equity and access. And I was proud to say that in New Canaan, that is already a focus of ours. And you could definitely see it in the linguistic diversity of students really earning the Seal of Biliteracy, not just in the languages that we offer, but the languages they might be studying outside of school or speaking at home as well. This is just a more detailed view of the languages, of each of the 13 languages, and how many students are qualifying or earning the Seal of Biliteracy upon graduation for 24 and 25. And this is a slide that we're all very, very proud of because we communicate this to the state. That's the number of graduating seniors earning the Seal of Biliteracy, which puts us well in the range of our surrounding DIRG districts. The range was 32% to 47%, so we were about in the middle. And, as always, I'd like to remind everyone that the data does fluctuate year to year. Even though we did grow 2% with 133 total seniors earning the seal, there's also differences in cohort sizes, there's scheduling parameters, and, there's also the expansion of certain programs that we have. Most notably, the Mandarin program. It's still evolving with the addition of the AP class, and you'll see its seal earning population continue to grow. But even though we have these variables that we take into account, I'm proud to say that our team maintains a rigorous and student-centered program that also aligns tightly to our national standards and district values. With regards to these next steps, I'm confident that these reviewed next steps, not only by myself, but also by the team of teachers, based on the data that we're seeing, we're very data-driven, will continue to have a positive impact on our students' attainment of biliteracy in English and a language of their choice. So first, just with regards to enhanced placement and progress monitoring, we're refining how we place students and track their progress using a combination of internal and national proficiency assessments that I just mentioned. We're able to provide the right level of challenge, identify students who are close to meeting the seal, and give them targeted support to help get them there. And what's most important is we're becoming more proficient and transparent about tracking and sharing progress with families, teachers, and the state. To ensure our transparency and accountability. So for example, now students are starting to hear more when they're actually taking their performance test, for example, at the end of unit, so we measured your interpretive speaking skills and you are at the novice high level, and this is how you're going to power up to the next level. So they're actually goal setting with this data as well. And in terms of less commonly taught language access, as I said, that was already our target from the beginning, is expanding access to native and heritage speakers. Those are students that are speaking other languages at home. And through partnerships with families and counselors have been awesome. A shout out to them as well. They're always communicating with us like, oh, hey, Kevin speaks Italian at home as well. What about the sealed biliteracy test for her? And I'm able to connect with students and families to provide those pathways so that all eligible students can pursue the seal even beyond the languages that we offer. In terms of instructional excellence, we continue to align our instruction with the national standards, but particularly because Connecticut came out with their new world language standards. And in November, we'll host a full-day workshop with a national representative from ACTFL to confidently say we're going to do that crosswalk with efficacy of the standards. And teachers are also exploring AI tools. And we are starting to get into the dome as well, as you heard probably from my colleague Melinda in the past. We're getting ahead of the game in terms of AI tools, using tools like Magic School AI and Snorkel to streamline planning and differentiation. And also, maybe it's because we're used to the Google Translate days, that we were already, when all this AI technology came out, we were like, we got to get ahead of this, and we got to do things like show our students to create bots with Magic School AI, to maybe have a little training at home to how to do that and how to improve their oral proficiency practices, for example. And we continue to incorporate best practices, as I said, with authentic student engagement and portrait of a graduate. In terms of curriculum development, I mentioned this, that our curriculum continues to align with national and now the newly revised state standards, following the Understanding by Design model, using our World Language Lab for an immersive practice. We're continuing to align our curricula to the new ACTFL proficiency guidelines to once again increase that accurate vocabulary and calibrate with our students as to what does it mean to have a certain proficiency and how to get to the next level. And really working on those performance tests so they emulate real world contexts. And we put them in, real world situations where a student their age, if they were to step into a community that speaks that language, no matter where it is, outside their home, in the state, or across the globe, they're able to communicate with efficacy and with empathy with speakers of those languages. And then certainly we want to continue the recognition and motivation. I'm currently working with the Connecticut Council of Teachers of Languages to see, okay, so we have the seals on the diplomas. We are communicating earlier and earlier to colleges and universities when they qualify, because we know they earn them upon graduation. We have the pins for graduation. Can we maybe do medals or something that might motivate them? So, and also including maybe some school-wide recognition and our website as well. And then obviously feedback and continuous program evaluation. This is what we do with the data year after year. And it's not just numbers. We collect qualitative data from students, families, and staff to continue to refine our program. And we make sure to conduct internal reviews, whether it's walkthroughs, whether it's looking at our UBDs with the Curriculum Leadership Council, just to ensure best practices and optimize student outcomes. So thank you very much. And yes?
I have a question. I think that my understanding is the primary pathway to the seal of biliteracy would be the language they start in 6th grade when they really choose a language they take all the way through high school, and that they can then, if they progress, earn the seal of biliteracy. There's a second pathway through if they speak a language at home that they could then bring that in. Mm-hmm. For students who take one language in middle school and then switch in high school, do those students do any of them, or is it typical or possible for them to make it to the seal of biliteracy, or is that pretty uncommon? Is it mostly unavailable to those students?
So the way we've designed and we've done the curricular developments of for example, of our level 1 courses, we make sure that when they have a chance to earn the seal, qualify for the seal of biliteracy, that's in level 4. So in our program of studies, for each of our courses, we have a proficiency expectation for each of our courses. If I think of our level 1 courses, they always have novice level, which is right at the bottom of the proficiency cone, so to speak. And if you go to level 2, it's at least novice, high, intermediate, low. And we're building them according to the data by level 3, if not by level 4, because we want to capture them. 'Cause sometimes with, like I said, with programming, it's hard for seniors to stay in that level 4. So we like to test level 4, we say, or junior year. So sometimes they're level 3. By level 3, you'll see that intermediate proficiency expectation, and we actually make sure that we design those experiences and that curricula to support that proficiency building, but that's where it's a bit more intense for the students. So some students, like, we have to explain to them, and our counselors have been awesome at this as well. Like, yes, you're taking a level 1 course, but it's a pretty intense experience because we want to help build your proficiency. It's not doable, but we want to create that equity access, and that's the way we did it with our recent curricular revisions as well. And we're tracking the data of those students. We want to make sure that we have so many spreadsheets, but they're a cohort that we follow closely because we want to make sure that we're equitable as possible. And I will also venture to say that, thanks to the community support, we also have Spanish being offered in kindergarten. So students studying Spanish also have that, that foundation that's very important, where we're seeing those advanced pathways where maybe they're getting to the AP courses sooner.
So that means that students, if they take the Spanish from K-5, choose another language, say Latin, French, for middle school, but then come back to Spanish, they have something of a baseline that helps them. But no matter what, if they're starting a language in high school, it is an intense process. It's possible,
Yes.
but it is an intense process to get there.
Yes. That's exactly right. And yeah, we're just fortunate that our students have many pathways and we have those conversations with them. We also have students that, according to their schedules that I see, they like to double up in languages because they just love that. So we do our best to accommodate every student need.
That's great. Thank you.
I was just wondering if you still thought our FLES program was like, best practices across the country. I mean, we've had it going now for about 20 years and have, results in. Didn't know if it needed to be tweaked or if there were other models out there, or what was
I mean,
thoughts about
we're
it?
continuously revising our curriculum. It's living and breathing, and that's something. And now that the new Connecticut standards came out, we're taking a closer look at it than ever before, particularly with guidance from Mary Hannah, the curriculum coordinator of social studies, because something that makes our program so unique is how closely aligned it is to social studies, because we take the familiar context of what they're learning during social studies time, since at the K-5 level, it's every other day. We switch off with social studies to reinforce like that background knowledge, and they're able to easily, through cognates, visuals, gestures, and Spanish, pick up on what they're learning. So it's actually pretty sophisticated for that developmental level. And we've had other districts, because the word gets out there, visit us, and the word gets out there because we've actually had our K-5 team present at numerous conferences as to what we're doing in New Canaan. But that being said, we are always looking to other programs as well. And it's because we're part of professional organizations, it's our work with the state. That's how I'm able to say that we're, our programming is in alignment and, with standards, both national and at the state level. And we're continuing looking to how to enhance that best practice.
Thanks.
With the interest in Mandarin sort of, seemingly growing over the last couple of years, are we starting to see at the younger grade levels kids not wanting to take as much French or even Spanish?
That's a good question. Our data over the years, it has remained pretty stagnant in terms of the students taking the courses. And I can confidently say that just based on our staffing reports, it hasn't really changed year after year, our FTE levels. Same thing with the number of students. It remains pretty consistent. However, we're always looking at those Mandarin numbers, because just thinking about our collaboration with other districts, that's something that other districts are unfortunately losing. Our languages like Mandarin and French and Latin, our numbers continue to be pretty strong. I think it's also through opportunities like the events, the cultural events that our Mandarin teachers put on for the community. And also in collaboration, in third grade, we always do a visit in May to all the elementary schools when they're learning about China. And our students from the high school teach mini lessons to the students, and they use Mandarin in real time, so we get them excited. So we find ways, even though for the other languages, to further answer your question, even though they start at 6th grade, we start finding avenues like World Language Week at Sax in grade 5 to try to get them excited earlier about other languages, but our data remains pretty consistent.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Up next, we have Mr. Zambrano talking about next steps in CTE, and I have to give a special thank you to these guys, to be honest with you, because those guys are over there, and that's great, and they come up when it's their turn. I had Christy sitting here because she helps me fix my mistakes when I don't hit the clicker to move forward, but I had to have somebody else next to her. But these guys have to sit there and make sure they are visibly interested in this whole thing, but aren't really saying anything. So I have to thank them for doing so with patience and excellence. But
Although we saw Larry dozing off a little bit, so I don't know.
Good evening. All right, so what can CTE offer? How do we help? What's our next step? The first bullet there is all about curriculum writing. So we review and update course content to ensure relevance to the 21st century. We are also, as everyone else, using AI to help with, writing good prompts for critical thinking, design thinking, how to increase student engagement. Next bullet is on new course offerings. We are expanding opportunities for all students across programs, for college-level courses to introductory courses and career paths. So some of the courses that we've put proposals in for next year, 2 new APs, so we'll bring it up to 31, hopefully. There is a new AP course in business with personal finance. So that goes along with the new state mandate for the personal finance course, yet this will be a year-long AP course in business with personal finance is their title. We might jazz it up a little bit. Another AP course is cybersecurity. Matt Salvestrini has been doing a review over the last couple of years, and one of our deficiencies at the high school was we didn't have anything in cybersecurity. So AP came along and is now offering a course in cybersecurity, so it's a great time to jump on that. And the last one is going to be a change in one of the Project Lead the Way courses. We're going to offer civil engineering and architecture and phase out principles of engineering. So there's no FTE switches there. The numbers will stay the same.
Budget discussion. We'll do that
Oh,
later.
sorry. Yeah, we need 25 more teachers. Sorry. Third bullet, we will continue offering co-curricular programs and after-school opportunities that enhance and support coursework. So, for instance, co-taught journalism, Mike McAteer is in English, and Mr. Spolsky's in tech ed. And then after-school things, there's all sorts of clubs and opportunities that we offer. Anytime a student says, hey, we have an interest in, Mr. Rothman's great about trying to find someone to mentor them. So there is TV, broadcasting, Girls Who Code, robotics, baking, TSA, FCCLA, the list goes on. The last one is modernizing instructional spaces and labs with cutting-edge technology to prepare students for post-secondary education and the workforce. So I would say 20 years ago when the building was renovated, everybody's excited about the space and everything's new. We really are kind of jumping on how do we make this more accessible to all students, making it more innovative and flexible as far as the classroom spaces go. So where are we going to be in 5 years, 10 years? Especially for CTE, it's always changing. There's always new courses. We've added several over the last 10 years, another 3 hopefully for next year. We really formalized that last year with a committee, and so the committee, Melinda, myself, Dr. Carenti, representatives from the middle school, the high school, visited 4 schools, and we were led by we hired an outside consultant to help out, and they were from Workspace Connecticut. They kind of guided us into the 4 schools that we saw that were really doing that, flexible classrooms and what was new and innovative about the spaces. So that is ongoing work that we do. That's how we're helping out. Questions? All right, thank you.
Mr. Remley's going to come up and talk a little bit about English, some of the steps that they've taken to enhance what they do.
All right. Thank you. Jim, is this your water? It's empty. It's empty. Appreciate that. All right, good evening. It's a pleasure to be here and an honor to be representing our students and our faculty. So I'm going to take you through a quick kind of presentation in terms of the English department and the work we did with SAT, specifically SAT conventions. So I'll get to that in a second. But so scores, kind of going on a baseline score, the state defines benchmark as a score of 480 or better in evidence-based reading and writing. So from comparing the 2024 cohort of test takers and 2025, we saw those numbers go from 89% to 93% of students achieving at least benchmark in evidence-based reading and writing. So the scores are broken down as an instructional report to us across 4 subsections. They are information and ideas, craft and structure, expression of ideas, and then standard English conventions. I'm going to pause and kind of talk about conventions a little bit. Last year, when I presented to you, it was identified as an area, I would say like a relative deficiency. We'd always known it was an area of weakness, but the College Board sort of changed the way that they report the scoring, and it shed some light on that. And even students that were doing well in the other 3 domains were actually struggling in standard English conventions. So we implemented some programmatic changes. So one of the things we do is we do monitor student progress across information ideas, craft and structure, and expression of ideas through an enterprise software with these interim assessments that we do a few times a year in grades 9 through 11. Conventions was a little bit of an outlier. So we worked together as a department and we decided to use the Writing Center to design some programmatic interventions by visiting junior classes to do some practice SAT with subsequent instructional kind of tutorials on a few kind of core SAT concepts. And I know you're thinking, it's an English class, don't you guys teach grammar? I assure you we do. However, one of our assessment protocols has always been revised writing. And that's changed to measure student understanding with grammar through revised writing has actually gotten pretty challenging because AI has sort of, it obscures what students understand in terms of like standard English conventions. And then the other thing too, which is worth noting, is that the questions themselves are pretty particular. They would stump even sometimes like a very dedicated grammarian. Things like comma splices, coordinating, subordinating conjunctions, things like that. So that was an area of focus. So here's a broad sense, and I talked about those score bands, and that's what this slide is. And this represents them across all subsections comparing the 24 cohort to the 25 cohort. So we saw solid growth across all those domains. One of the tricks, obviously, when you're trying to identify what you see as a deficiency is not to have an overcorrection and have that come at the cost of lower performance in another area that had been a relative strength. So one of the ways we represented the conventions piece was I divided the students up in it. Well, Michelle Ludela helped me, and then she explained it. We divided them up into buckets. So there's 7 of these sub-score domains. It doesn't give you data beyond that. It just gives you these sub-scores. It doesn't give you a composite of a student did this number, in this sub-score. So we divided the middle one in half and kind of split those students into either bucket. So looking at it that way, how many students move from the lower bucket to the higher bucket? And I talked about one of the tricks being improving convention scores without, not at the cost of the other subscores. So this graph kind of represents that in a different visual. We had the same number of students achieving in the higher buckets relatively, but we moved more of them over. Conventions is the kind of gold band there. So we moved from 83 to 211, kind of going into that higher band. And then this is going across those subscores. And worth noting too is on average, about 20 students per subscore moved up in conventions. So we're really pleased with this. One last note too is kind of going back on that baseline of the 480 being state benchmark. In 2024, we had 35.5% of students below or at goal in the convention subscore. In 2025, that number dropped to 21.5%. So solid growth. And there's just one more sort of chart kind of representing moving more students into the higher bucket and from the lower bucket. And that's particularly important in a test like the SAT or the PSAT because it's adaptive in nature. So you've got to move up to that harder module, which is where I think it's right around the 550 to 600 score band. It moves you up to the higher bucket, the higher or the more challenging module. So unless you can test into that stronger module, you won't be able to achieve your higher score, even though you're still taking the test. You're kind of capped out, I think, around like 580 or 600. It's like as high as you can go if you don't go up to the harder module. So next steps for us, we talked a little bit about some of the programs in the Writing Center, which I'm happy to answer in terms of the college essay, but I wanted to focus on using them to design and implement this grammar instruction. So we felt it went well. It's so hard to tell, in a system as complicated and vast as a school, like, hey, is something working? But this made us feel pretty good about it. And then one thing, I guess, just to kind of cross-check this, we were thinking, well, we are comparing across different cohorts. It's different students, 24 to 25, could just be a fluke. And it might be. I don't want to, stand back here next year and be like, if things go sideways on me. But we looked at the PSAT scores and saw this is how that group did. This is a pie chart. I did this for Principal Egan because he enjoys them. And the pie chart kind of shows where students were. This is that same cohort we were just talking about, the 2025, and this is the convention subscore. And then comparing all three, once again, pretty solid growth from the PSAT administration with the same group of students in 2024 to the SAT school day in March of 2025. Now, it should go up. I mean, things are going poorly if it isn't, but we felt this was pretty solid growth and made us feel confident in some of the programmatic adjustments we were making. Once again, kind of representing going back to the buckets, higher, lower. You see there's all three kind of represented and going to the blue being the lower bucket and the red being the higher bucket. We're seeing solid growth to that March 2025 SAT date. So the goal is for this year to continue to use PSAT data and other internal diagnostics, going to classroom teachers, our own assessments to help inform instruction, place students in interdisciplinary reading classes. We do use the PSAT data, and we have for a long time in terms of providing that intervention and to provide targeted instruction to reach state benchmark. And then the last piece, too, is continue to develop our new curriculum initiatives. And this is kind of a nod a little bit to adjusting our writing instruction to the age of AI. I talked about conventions sort of being something that wasn't necessarily on our radar because our normal way of assessing it is sort of being, I don't know how else to describe it, it's being obscured a little bit through generative AIs. And I think that's it. I would try to keep it under 5 minutes. Any questions?
Yeah, so I have a few. I'm trying to figure out, obviously 1 year doesn't make a trend, right? But this is great directionally. And I'm trying to figure out, this sort of foots with the increased ELA scores in SATs this year relative to last year, right? And so what I'm trying to figure out is, have we identified what the issue was? And as I look back and sort of, because we only have 24, 25 data here, have you expanded this historically to maybe look back to a pre-COVID era?
Pre-COVID to look at this, so they didn't report the scores this way, so I can't do that type of analysis. It's a little tricky. So they started doing it last year with these bands, and I find them to be much more useful from an instructional standpoint because it gives you a sense of where even like students that did really well in one might not have done well in another. And they represented that data differently through these composite scores on a 1 through 15 scale. So it would be a little kind of apples to oranges comparison to do that. And the other thing too is the test has changed. Previously, it was longer form passages, about 700 to 800 words in a variety of fiction, nonfiction, social sciences, those types of things. They've moved now to kind of capping around about 200-word passages, single items on those. And they're actually they're still interdisciplinary in nature. Some of the passages are pretty heavy on the sciences. So having for instance, a pretty robust science vocabulary would be very helpful for the highest domain ones. Now, those are the ones we talked about that I think it's the 680 to 800 band. That's how, without boring you guys to tears about the psychometrics of the test, which I don't fully understand myself, but that's one of the ways they can separate and kind of get to that upper band of scores is they'll use those really challenging items that kind of cross over a few of those sub-scores as well.
Okay. So, all right, I guess I appreciate the change in task, and so there's a lot of variables that we can't control. I'm just curious as to I love the fact that you went back and looked at the PSAT scores. It seemed to be consistent with what you're finding in the SATs and what you're finding in the ABW, but has there been any change in the curriculum or instruction or approach anywhere within the last, I don't know, in the development of these students, right? And this vintage of students, maybe there was something in 8th grade that we changed, or in freshman year, or something that we're seeing the effects now. I'm trying to figure out, what other variables could explain. Obviously there's the test, right? And there are other things. What are the variables that we control explain, or could explain, right, the increase in performance, right? So we can identify that and maybe sort of isolate those and for the future. So when we do gather more data over the next 3 years or 4 years, we can identify things that have worked and haven't worked. And I don't know if maybe COVID is a variable, because as I look at sort of going back to early in the presentation to the ELA scores and the SATs, there was a significant dip in the ELA average in 22 and 23 and 24. 22 and then 23, 24 kind of comes up, and then obviously we had a great year last year. So I'd be curious for us to kind of focus on, understanding what we can control, or if there's been some sort of change in our instruction, our approach anywhere, whether it's in the elementary level or at the middle school level or earlier in the years in the high school level.
Yeah, I think they're great questions, and I ask myself the same ones because it's a complex system, right? And there are even cultural forces kind of going on here from COVID. And I think more and more schools, as they're requiring it, I think that's incentivizing students to take it more. I think there's more SAT prep classes happening. So some of those things are outside of our control. So I try and just focus on what I can present to you and say, this is what we're doing. But yeah, I do think those things affect averages. And in terms of I think programmatically, well, we saw some of the direct instruction and the coaching with grammar, I do think was helpful. On some of the other subsections, it's tricky because, like I said, when you get to, for instance, expression of ideas. Another way to frame that would be that's vocab. A lot of that is they can be kind of heavy vocab questions, not in the way that not judging your age, but if you took the SAT in the '90s, thinking. Remember the analogies and stuff like that?
Very late 90s. I'd have.
Okay, just clear
on the record. Thank you.
Yeah, I heard about it. I didn't take it myself then. No. So, that was heavy vocab, analogies. It's not like that. They're more like words in context. But vocab's an interesting one because it's kind of fallen out of vogue. For a long time in English, we didn't prioritize it, but now it's starting to swing back. So, but that's also kind of comes into vocab is through just a vast experience of reading a lot and well. So we've always tried to encourage that, curricularly and programmatically, but the direct instruction of vocab has kind of gone, back and forth in terms of English classrooms, whether it was effective or not. Did it, actually kids remember vocab quizzes and things like that, that kind of went out of I don't want to say that went the way of the dodo, but it's stopped being a priority in a lot of English classrooms. Now we've sort of talked about, maybe we need to do more of it again. So those are things like kind of getting down to the granular level, we do talk about it. But I do think from a bigger picture, yeah, I do think these kind of cultural forces change some of the emphasis on the test, and probably will continue to do so, but I can't control those, so
Yeah.
do the best
No,
I
of
can.
course. I mean, there's always going to be external exogenous factors that we can't control. It'd just be interesting as we see sort of positive trends in data, if we could eventually sort of isolate, or if there's something to identify, maybe there isn't, that we could sort of lean into.
Well, that's why he tried to really talk a little bit about the conventions piece. Because that was a clear focus that they tried to do. But again,
No, it may not, I doubt it's even at high school. That's what I'm wondering. Like, it's not even, it's beyond, certainly it's beyond the scope of your responsibilities, but just as a district, it's things we should think about. I mean, we had a discussion, I don't know, it all runs together about math, right? And about sort of where we see deficiencies, and a lot of it has to do with fractions, right? Maybe it's in 5th grade or something like that, where, these effects compound over time. And so I think just from a district perspective, from a curriculum perspective, like, what explains this and how can we sort of lean into this? And obviously, we don't have enough data, but it's something to keep in mind if there are variables that we should consider.
So when they realigned the SAT, they aligned it to the Connecticut Common Core. So the whole SAT is aligned to the Common Core standards. So when you look at those information and ideas, craft and structure, expression of ideas, standard English conventions, you will see that all the way through to their senior year. So it starts back in 3rd grade. So actually, many of these items are assessed in the Smarter Balance. So we're tracking, how our students are doing in conventions. We're tracking how our kids are doing in information and ideas. We then will drill into like informational text. And so we'll talk a little bit more about the deeper understanding of how do you read informational text. And it makes a huge shift when they're taking that Smarter Balance. So the informational text increases each year when they're taking it. So there's a lot of informational text by the time they're hitting 8th grade that they're assessed on versus possibly when they're in 3rd. So you see that whole, it really is a pattern, very similar to math when we talk about those Common Core standards. So, as we're addressing the standard English conventions back in 3rd grade, in 8th grade, and in high school. So it's something that we're continually doing. And we can dive a little bit more deeply into the targets and the claims that they use in Smarter Balance are similar. They're just a little bit, once again, similar to the SAT, you don't get a lot of individual data. So you might not see like every single claim that a child might need work on. So we see overarching themes, and then we try to look at those overarching themes, and we try to look to see, do we need to make adjustments in our curriculum, or do we need to make adjustments maybe in our instructional practices, or do we need to look at how something might be worded on an assessment so kids are familiar with how to address those kinds of things on assess. So it's very complex when you're looking at it all.
And I'll keep looking at it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Yes. I have a question about AI. So stepping back from the tests specifically, English seems like one of the places where AI can be very much a leverage, a tool, but also a shortcut for learning. And
I've never,
so,
really? That could happen?
That's my impression. You're the expert. So I just wanted to hear your thoughts on where we are and how we're adapting our teaching to that world. And I was also just thinking of it in the context of, in middle school, our students have devices that are issued by the district that have controls in place. The high school, the students are bringing their own devices. And so it's just, there's a lot available to them, and how we're thinking about that in English specifically.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, I can try and give you a short answer, but it's an ongoing conversation. So last year, we kind of had an offsite as a department, and we sort of shared strategies and talked about like our assignments. The term we've been using here is like durable assignments that aren't as easily corrupted by generative AI. But the reality is, like, it's changed things pretty drastically in a way that is like we're still, how do we put it, like we're still kind of evolving and figuring it out. Because on one hand, it's everywhere and it's really powerful and can be really helpful. But just going back to like a staple English assignment, right? Your teacher would say, here's an essay. They give you a prompt on something you read or discussed in class, and I want you to articulate, and you're going to kind of now refine your thinking, right? And then your teacher might leave feedback, and you go back and you revise it, and you think about some other stuff you wanted to include. All that can be done through a bot very quickly. And, teachers, like, I don't know, it's like we've moved some experiences into the classroom. We're trying to focus more on process-oriented pieces, which is, I think the way we're going to have to evolve unless we want everything to be kind of on demand. And then I think there's some other pathways too for us going forward. But I think the riskiest thing is probably doing nothing. I don't think we can kind of just stay with the status quo. And, my team, we've talked with, we've communicated very openly. We've tried to share with parents and families, like, we're trying some new stuff this year. And we're doing it because we feel like we really have to. And to stay with the status quo would, I think, kind of, we might risk irrelevance. So that's a short answer to kind of a long conversation, though.
Great.
All right, thank you.
Up next, Mrs. Pavia for math.
Hello. So I come up here every year and I talk about our focus on curriculum, instruction, and assessment, and that really hasn't changed. A brief kind of history, after COVID, we went to the block schedule, which shifted our instructional practices. We're continually refining our curriculum practices based on the SAT, based on our standards. So while I go through some of these bullet points, they are nuanced in some ways, so it's not as broad strokes as it's been in the past. We're continuing to refine our practice. So as far as the curriculum goes, we're continuing to look through our curriculum documents to make sure that our progression makes sense. So math sequentially builds from one year to the next, so making sure that we've checked all those boxes for where those standards live and the depth at which students are being exposed to those standards and how they develop year to year and course to course. Within that, we're also checking the SAT objectives. Connecticut has a crosswalk where they talk about which SAT standards and which SAT problems might be embedded into different courses. So making sure that we have that language in our curriculum document so it's very apparent to anyone who might be teaching the class, and making sure that teachers have the opportunity to collaborate. So as basic as it sounds, there's a common understanding of what it means to teach Algebra 1 and what this standard might mean from class to class. And shifting over to the instructional side, so similar language, but now we're talking about the approach obviously from what students are experiencing. So designing instruction that creates the meaningful experiences for students, not simply that they're going through and doing this checklist of math skills that they can solve, but making sure that they're getting really what they need and things that they need to grow. So we do a lot of mild, medium, and spicy in terms of problem sets for students. We love our mild, medium, and spicy to help students push up into higher level math courses or higher level types of thinking within their math programs. We also have targeted some of the technology we have allows for students to practice individual skills. So oftentimes before an assessment, a teacher might put out, 4 different Delta math assignments, and you can choose which one you want to work on based on what you might need and the feedback you've received after completing your review. Making sure that we've promoted the higher order thinking and exposure to the more complicated problems. So again, just making sure our instruction is deep and not just wide. Focusing on the application and conceptual understanding is a big component of Common Core. So making sure that we're not just, again, running through that checklist of can you do all these skills, but do I really conceptually understand what the math is asking? Because some of those SAT questions will also ask content in kind of that abstract way, and helping students apply what they've learned to different scenarios, just the approach might be a little bit different question to question. Also, using the portrait of a graduate to get to that deeper understanding as well. So our students, are they adaptable in their math approaches is a skill that they can use on the SAT. There's technology, we have the Desmos calculators embedded in all the SAT questions. So sometimes, even though you can, you might not be able to solve the problem the way I would want to see it in my math class, but you have these tools available to you on the test. So can you adapt to be able to solve the question in maybe a slightly different way? And then continue to use the block in the meaningful way as we nuance our curriculum and refine it. Focus on teacher collaboration to ensure common understanding of student learning outcomes is a big topic of conversation. So making sure that students really do demonstrate their knowledge in a fair way across, sometimes we have 4 teachers teaching one subject. So just making sure that students have an equitable experience across the scope and sequence of our program. And then obviously integrate SAT practice opportunities. So sometimes it's just handing kids a problem set and being like, maybe, practice this type of question. It ties to our curriculum. So we're, again, getting to that deeper learning, but also giving them a chance to practice. Because what we don't want to do is stop what we're doing just to teach to the test. So kind of moving both of those aspects forward at the same time. And then from the assessment point of view, again, focusing on that skill, concept, and application. So what we don't want to do is have kids in class, assess one way and then go to take the SAT and assess a different way. So making sure that there's exposure, through the curriculum, the instruction, and the assessment to all types of questions. And research also shows that having that deeper understanding helps promote, students will understand the concepts further. So even though you might go faster, taking the time to go deeper again helps them really solidify those foundational skills they would need for future math classes. A focus for next year will also be performance tasks. So again, just maybe not a traditional test, but helping kids understand or explain their learning in a slightly different way that would be highly tied to the portrait of a graduate. Using feedback and formative assessments to help them understand where their learning deficiencies may or may be, what their strengths are, and what they can build on. Using AI also from the teacher perspective and from the student perspective to help with all of those processes. And one of the things we're particularly excited about is our new math interventionist. So thank you all for helping to put that position in place. She has not started yet. She's on maternity leave, so she'll be starting second quarter. So we're really excited. So we will be looking at data, and she has been looking at data to help kind of figure out where some targeted interventions might be. So monitoring the progress within classes and with who's using the math lab, and then looking at ways that we can help teachers differentiate their instruction, extend skills, or reinforce skills within classes. Because believe it or not, we are still making up for deficits in COVID. Fractions is still out there, as the freshmen this year pointed out. I think they were in 4th grade, which is when they start learning about fractions. So it still is kind of an area where we continue to reinforce even after all these years. And then this chart is just an analysis of some of the things that the math interventionist and I will be looking at programmatically. So the math SAT breaks down into 4 categories. We have algebra, advanced algebra, geometry, trigonometry, data, and problem solving. And one interesting component is that the test is really algebra and advanced algebra heavy. So almost like 80% of the test is really that algebra component. There may be 6 questions on the other 2 strands, 12 in each, so 6 and 6. So even though it, on the graph here, it looks like they're evenly distributed, the algebra is really where we focus if we're looking at programmatic changes. So one thing that we noticed here was that the comparing the subscores for the algebra and advanced algebra, we did make some progress moving kids into that upper band. I don't have fancy buckets on this section of the PowerPoint. I'll have to speak to management about that. It's math. And this is just a breakdown of the algebra band from the fall. The red is the fall PSAT, the blue would be the spring SAT, and the growth that we were able to make moving kids further along. So what we would be doing with the math interventionist, we'll sit down and kind of look at this data and figure out, where within our program will we need to make some changes, or the little tweaks we can make here and there to help move more students into those upper bands. And there's the advanced algebra is the last graph I put in there. So, questions?
Thank you.
Sure. And up next, Mr. Fercucci for social studies. We're getting close, I promise you guys. Next year, Mr. Campbell said I need 175 slides next year.
Good evening, Mike Fercucci, Social Studies Department. I've got 3 points just to briefly introduce, and then I've got some graphs to illustrate them a bit better. But first, I want to talk about our internal assessments, how we gauge the progress we're making with students, both as a group and individual students, and how we can work with them on those different skills. Then how our internal assessments line up with the standard assessments, whether they be SAT, AP mostly. And then last, next steps, which would be mostly AI integration in the work we're doing there. So first, for the last few years, I've been talking about our benchmark process, how we've been creating new internal assessments, and they're finally done. So this is the growth from our 9th graders last year, our current 10th graders. And you could see the red line would be their post-assessment, the black line their pre-assessment. So we've got less below goal, less near goal, and then we make that switch where we're getting more achieving goal and more exceeding goal as the year progresses, which is great news. This is, of course, whole class data. We do break down, and I included this just so you get a sense of how we look at it. We can break it down by question, and we have aligned all our questions both with the Connecticut Social Studies Standards and the AP skills. So we're kind of looking at both at the same time. And there's different source types that we work with in history, whether they're secondary sources, primary sources, or non-textual sources. I included this example because it shows a whole lot of growth. This was
At least you're honest.
non-textual sources. You might recall if you've been here for a while, there was a year where our students didn't do as well analyzing non-textual sources. So we were sure to include those as a focus. And in addition to looking at whole class data, we can also look at individual students. And I just happened to be looking at them today, our scores from this year. And to align with what Evan was talking about, one of the question types that they consistently struggled on was determining the meaning of words in context, words they might not know. And so we'll be thinking about that too. And similar to what Evan was talking about, I think part of it is that problem can be solved quite quickly now when you're reading online. You just click the difficult word and it gives you a definition. So whether that skill is something that they're constantly practicing, maybe not. And also, reading in that way requires kind of sustained, silent, focused concentration, which is increasingly hard in the digital world. But we are seeing growth with these benchmarks throughout their time at New Canaan High School. And then we looked at our scores versus SAT scores. And what we found was our expectations are a bit more rigorous than what we're seeing on SATs, meaning we have a bit more students that are scoring below goal, a bit more students that are scoring near goal, and then quite a few less that are scoring at or exceeding the goal. I think that's appropriate and not too unexpected. One of the reasons is our benchmarks have SAT-style questions, but also AP-style questions about, well, most of our students end up taking AP courses, so we're of course trying to prepare them for that. And being in New Canaan, we think the rigor should be stepped up a bit, and we weren't too surprised by these results. And their benchmarks don't impact their grades or their GPA, so it's really just a gauge for how they're doing and what we can focus on moving forward. Last year I was asked about breakdown by gender, and I didn't have a great answer, so I included that. These are the post-assessments for our junior classes for our past 4 classes. And you'll notice there's no real major difference. The class of 2025 and the class of 2028 has a slight higher score amongst males, but that's like 1 question out of 30 on these assessments. So I don't know that it's anything too significant that we're seeing in the classroom. And last, we have our AP scores. We're quite proud that our AP scores continue to rise, with one exception there. You can see our economic scores took a bit of a dip this year. And there's, I think, several reasons for that, one of which is we have a brand new teacher. So for a very long time, we had Mike Staffaroni teaching economics. He was well experienced and had a whole lot of success there. He moved on from our department, and now, so we had a brand new teacher. And there were some kind of external factors which may have played a role in this, one of which is the state requirement for a personal finance class included our economics classes, and it was one of the only AP classes included in that group. So we think perhaps that pushed some more kids into the class who might not have otherwise took it. And Bill earlier was talking about our increased enrollment in AP courses. These kids are taking lots of AP classes, and I think economics might be hit by that significantly only because they're one semester courses. They take macroeconomics one semester, microeconomics one semester. And these are full semester courses in a lot of schools. So in addition to the increased course load, they've also got this course that's jam-packed in a tight amount of time. To address that, we're doing a few things, one of which is getting a new teacher accredited to teach the course because it's AP and ECE, and you have to get an ECE accreditation, which we're able to get another teacher on, so they can kind of split the load and work together to hopefully increase our students' capacity there. And also AI is hopefully going to be a solution. In the social studies arena, I've been leery of the impact of AI, but my colleagues in math and science have said how great it is for practice questions, and that's particularly useful in economics. So hopefully that's a tool that we can use to increase the practice students are getting and the experience they're getting with the types of questions they're dealing with in the economics classes. That's a particular type of AI use, more consistent with the rest of our classes, though in social sciences, we're hoping to use AI productively because, of course, it's a very fine line between using AI to improve your academics versus using AI to do your academics. We're really looking at their prompting. Ultimately, we've decided it still comes down to the basics: reading, critical thinking, and clear communication. Luckily, we have a AI tool, Magic School it's called, that allows us to read student prompts, set up assignments, and all those sort of things, so we can see the prompts they're putting into AI, what they're getting back, and then how they're using that information to continue the conversation, hopefully in a way that shows growth, that shows learning, and not just kind of surface level, repeating the questions they're being asked by the teacher and kind of shooting out an answer. So yeah, those are our major focuses. Any questions?
So you mentioned the little dip in the economics courses. The more notable thing to me on this graph is the meteoric rise in psychology and AP US government and politics. I'm just curious what you attribute that rise to, because that's, we're below 3 in 2 courses a few years ago, and now we're approaching 4. That's statistically fascinating.
Yes, yeah, we're quite proud of that. What could account for it? We've got great students and great teachers. Other than that, though, they haven't made major curriculum changes within that time frame. There were some curriculum changes in the social studies world, in the AP social studies world, about 3 to 4 years back, that shifted the focus less on memorizing content and more on comprehension. So rather than kind of just spitting out a bunch of information, you'll have more passages to read and make sense of and things like that. I think perhaps that's a strength of our students, but I'm not sure other than that.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
And up next, Mr. Parsons to talk a little bit about special education and some of the improvements we've made and tried to look at in special ed.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to highlight and share some of the strengths of the special education program with student participation and outcome. Although other than having to wait till I think is last, this is really a good place for special ed to share some of this information. Our students with IEPs are in all of these classes. All of this data that was shared previously really applies to our students who are in these classes, as evidenced by this first slide up here, looking at our first bullet point, which is really looking at, special education students, participation in general education, advanced coursework. You can see nearly 30% of our special ed students with an IEP are taking at least one advanced course. Over 50% are in at least one college prep course, and then 18% of our students are taking at least one special education course. So really providing those opportunities for those students to participate in those courses with, support and reasonable accommodations. I should point out there at the top there, we have 171 students with an IEP. About 8 of those students are in more of a vocational programming, and so we're looking at these numbers based off that 162 who are, taking these type of courses. And then looking at our NGSS, which again was, covered before, but we have over half our students, meeting or exceeding that benchmark, and then 11 approaching there. Which highlights that point of providing opportunities for that rigorous coursework. So what does that look like? Oh, here, I just press next? All right, this is all right. So what does that look like? Our next bullet points really encompass collaboration and differentiation between the special education department teachers and general ed teachers, and then monitoring our special education courses specifically, ensuring that they, align with the general education studies. And if you look at those numbers, looking at the class from last year, we had 28 students with an IEP. 23 of those students enrolled in a 4-year college or university, and then 3 were either a 2-year or a postgraduate year. And I know it was a long time ago. I think it was one of the first slides where we looked at the colleges that the students were applying to. If you recall, there's quite a few up there that were also on that list as well. Which, like I said in the beginning, I'm very appreciate the opportunity. I think it's something to be really proud of, not just the special ed department, but as it says in there, between the general education teachers as well, the way we collaborate and make sure that our students with IEPs are getting access in the least restrictive environment to that rigorous coursework. I think that's pretty much it. I know I was last, so I was trying to get it in there. I don't know if there's any questions.
Any questions? Great, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
And one final chance for anybody. Any questions before we go? No. If not, I just want to say thank you. Thank you to all of our people who came out tonight, but all of our kids, most importantly, to our parents who support us along the way, and to our amazing teachers who make it all possible. I hope you're all proud. This is an amazing school, and we're truly proud of what we do. So, thank you.
Yeah, I want to echo that. Thank you guys all for all the work that you do. I know a lot goes into this 37-pound packet as well. But what's more important than its sheer volume is the data that's inside it, and the fact that in the 4 years I've been here, and I know long before me, we don't rest on just being the best or among the best. You keep outdoing yourselves, which is not an easy feat, and you continue to do it. In all segments of our educational programs. Every single one of you guys, super impressive, and I really appreciate the A game that you guys bring, and the appreciation and the love that you guys clearly have for your roles here in New Canaan with our kids. And I love seeing that it seems to be, for most cases, we're pretty much back from from the COVID loss, which that's no small feat, especially considering what we've seen across the country. So thank you for doing that, and that was really, really important to us. And you guys remember, you brought, we had questions last year that you had answers to this year, and
you guys even get.
I don't even remember those questions.
Know who's facing me on this thing next year.
I will give a special shout out to Michelle, because I think I submitted a district headshot, but she went on my LinkedIn. That's going the extra mile, so that's acknowledged.
Thank you so much. Really
Thanks,
appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Why don't you tell them all they can go home?
Oh yeah, you guys can all go home.
Yeah.
They're like, we know. All right, we've got a few action items, starting with the NCHS PFA donation. do we want to discuss them?
I can give a quick, just a very brief overview. So each year, each of the parent organizations at our schools, the PTCs, K-8, and the PFA at the high school, donate to various endeavors within the school. And looking at it this year, there were a couple that went over the $5,000 threshold, so we thought we would do it as one large donation to be approved by the Board of Education. That $28,440 goes into 18 different line items, the largest of which is the fund to support students who need it most, the Angel Fund. And that's over $5,000, and then some others, it's scattered throughout the program, just in order to enrich as we do. So similar to the way that we accept donations for athletics through the All Sports Booster Club, no one of those necessarily hits the threshold, but in combination, they do. I just felt that it was best to come for the board's approval for the $28,440 as a whole.
Great, thank you. So can I get a motion to approve the donation from the NCHS PFA in the amount of $28,440 in support of 18 various NCHS student activity funds? Phil, second Laura, all in favor? Wonderful. Moving on to the East School PTC donation.
Yep, and this just came to our attention today, and they were thrilled to share. So during the 24-25 school year, the East School PTC raised funds through the Eagle's Nest fundraiser with the goal of supporting capital improvements projects that were identified by the school leadership. This project is the restoration of a quarter-mile walking trail, which is located in a large field that's adjacent to the school. Once it's restored, the trail will support the launch of a new student walking club and expand physical outdoor activity options while still keeping the space available for soccer and flag football and other free play that they're doing. The reason it came on the board's agenda tonight in such short order is because right now is the right time to do it. Lacrosse has finished using the fields, but we're not going to have that large of a window in order to get this done. So they're all lined up and ready to go. So with the board's approval, they'll be able to make a call tomorrow, get the final schedule going, and get the work done in the next week or two. There was a competitive bidding process overseen by the district. The vendor has been selected, and given the scope of the work, they're seeking the Board of Ed's approval because it is for $15,320. Again, all fundraised over at East through the Eagle's Nest fundraiser that they do annually.
Love it. All right, can I get a motion to approve a donation from the East School PTC in the amount of $15,320 for the restoration of the walking trail adjacent to the East School building? Phil, Laura, all in favor? Thanks. Just happened to be looking that way.
Oh, I see Julie's
Motion
raising-
passes. Julie as well.
Julie's raising her
Wonderful.
hand, too.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Last but not least, we've got the district VPA donation.
Yes, so this one came to us about a week or two ago, and it came from Amy Browning, who's the relative of Chris Browning. A few years ago, there was a donation made in Chris Browning's name to the high school for the purposes of supporting students who are interested in studying or a career in theater. And so those funds had been drawn down a bit. They contacted us wanting to make a donation of $25,000 towards that fund. So we did some research, looked into things, and talked directly with the family, and they'd like the funds to continue to be used for that specific purpose, for students who are interested in studying theater as a theater major in college or as a career right out of high school. So we're looking at ways to use the funds to help those students for that specific purpose. It's really a very generous donation, and they have also committed to maintaining the donation each year to ensure there's always enough funds in the endowment in Chris Browning's name to ensure that we can support students who are interested in this career path, but either as a college major or as a career right out of high school. So really very, very generous. We're deeply grateful, and bring it to you for your approval tonight.
All right, so can I get a motion to approve a donation of $25,000 from Amy Browning towards the Chris Browning Endowment for students interested in theater as a major and/or career? Penny, second Campbell, all in favor? Excellent, thank you. Julie? Yeah. Comments from the public? Sure? Yeah, you good? All right. Last chance. And then announcements and future business, please.
Yep, there was one more donation that we received. I just want to say thank you. The community member donated some money. It doesn't come to the board for approval, didn't hit the threshold, but wanted to let you know that there's other conversation happening about our cookie program, and folks are continuing to reach out, wanting to help support that endeavor on behalf of our children and families who need it the most. So just wanted to thank them publicly. Our next meeting is October 20th, where Dr. Correnti and members of our CLC will be sharing the elementary data report and looking at the results of our most recent assessments. Both are, it might be a little tighter, a little lighter. We'll see. But as you know, in the Smarter Balance in those assessments, it's both the performance of the snapshot, but also the longitudinal growth of our kids, because we always want to look at that growth over time for our students. And a quick teaser, it's an outstanding result. Again, thanks to the great work of Dr. Krenti, the CLC, our curriculum leaders, our teachers, and everybody sort of rowing the same direction, doing the most important work between the teacher, student, and the content, and what happens in the instructional core across our district. We also have our statement of accounts, so the CLC will be leaving after their presentation, and Mr. O'Keefe will be sharing with us the statement of accounts. I also just want to briefly mention, today we published our first district newsletter, where we were able to share just some updates about things happening district-wide. I was able to give a brief update on transportation. I'm not going to do it again. Read it if you'd like to know. And we're in good shape and enjoying this great weather for at least another day.
Great, thank you very much. Can I get a motion to adjourn, please? Laura, second. We got Campbell, all in favor? All right, Julie, there she is for that one. That's great, thank you. Meeting adjourned, thank you.